Good evening, I'm Jason Vio. Katerina is away tonight. This is CBC Windsor News live at 6. Thank you so much for watching. Tonight, the Premier visits Windsor, Essex as uncertainty swirls around the battery plant. Plus, more Windsor police officers are on patrol today in the downtown core. It comes after an assault that sent someone to hospital with serious injuries. There are plans to move Sandpoint Beach in East Windsor. This comes after some safety concerns of its current location in the Detroit River. And the Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix is back in downtown Detroit for the first time in more than 30 years. I'll take you there coming up a little later in our show. We begin tonight with the visit from Premier Doug Ford. His trip to Essex County today comes as local leaders continue to push for a deal that secures the battery plant. CBC's TJ Deere joins me live now with more. So TJ, no deal yet, but you got us a little bit closer to some of those details today.
That's right, Jason. Still no deal confirmed between Stellantis, LG Energy Solutions, and upper levels of government. But Ford did give me a better sense of how much money the province is putting forward.
We're in for one third the cost.
Whatever deal Ottawa agrees with Stellantis and LG Energy Solutions, Queen's Park will fund 1/3 of it. Premier Doug Ford said this dedication was for the people. He also made clear his partnership with the federal government.
Well, we're helping the federal government with their deal, and we're going to be there to support them. You're going to see the building continue to go up, and you're going to see them starting to hire people. They're first out of the gate, so we're going to see a real economic boom here, but we're going to get it done.
His comments come as Stellantis and LG Energy Solutions say no deal has been confirmed. The Toronto Star reported that a tentative deal had been struck between Ottawa, Queen's Park, and Stellantis. Ford said he didn't know how accurate that report was, and Canada's industry minister says negotiations are ongoing.
Things are progressing, and my objective, as that always been, is to get the best possible deal for our workers, for the auto industry, and for Canada. So discussions are ongoing, and I would say, I said it yesterday, let's take a deep breath. Those are negotiations. It's very normal how things are going. I do that every day. You know, for me, it's just like another day where we negotiate to get the best possible deal for Canada.
I'm just very, very confident we're just inches away from making this happen.
At a panel in Toronto today focused on EVs, one industry advocate believes the deal being worked on now is between the federal and provincial governments.
A lot of us were surprised that Doug Ford said, well, we're going to be part of it. And that's really big movement. That's an unprecedented move by a province to be involved in something like this.
Windsor Mayor Drew Dilkens called the current situation a hiccup, adding he was confident a deal would be signed soon. There's 2,500 jobs linked to the EV battery plant, with thousands more in spin-off jobs expected to come to the region. Construction has been halted at the module portion of the battery plant for nearly 3 weeks after LG and Stellantis said the federal government reneged on the deal. The negotiations were spurred by the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States, which could provide a plant like this billions of dollars in tax credits. Now, while the Premier outlined his commitment of funding 1/3 of any deal, he didn't say how much the total amount would be, and no timeline has been set for a confirmed deal either.
Thanks so much, TJ. The CBC's TJ Deere reporting live tonight. And Premier Ford was also in Essex County to talk about Highway 3. The province has previously announced they'll be doubling the lanes there. Today, they awarded the $138 million contract.
This portion of Highway 3 is a critical link for people and communities in the Southwest. With over 17,000 vehicles traveling the stretch of the highway each and every single day, expanding the highway will reduce gridlock, cut down on commute times, and improve the movement of people and goods throughout this growing region.
Ford also threw support behind a plan to connect Highway 401 to Lausanne Parkway. It will help support a proposed industrial park just off Lausanne there. The interchange will build a more direct route for trucks to access the new Gordie Howe Bridge. Mayor Drew Dilkens says this will be a key part of the city's future.
And so this connection actually links to the 401 at Lausanne and actually makes it easier for everyone in Essex County to get to the new hospital that we're going to build. And so you layer on the housing aspect and you look at the Sandwich South lands and you know that there is going to be at least a 2,000 home subdivision being built in the northwestern part of the Sandwich South lands. They too will have access to a huge interchange to be able to get to and from Windsor and Essex County. So on a number of fronts, this is a priority project.
And starting today, Windsor police are stepping up patrols in the downtown area. It'll last 3 days and comes after a person was recently attacked and seriously injured in the core. But as Dale Molnar reports, some business people are skeptical much will change.
Windsor police patrolling downtown arrested a man today. The owner of a downtown parking lot says he was making threats and damaging property.
He was going nuts. He was threatening us, called us all different names. He came in with a hammer, tried to beat us with a hammer.
Camille Hillou says he has been the victim of several other incidents of property damage.
Well, 5 weeks ago, 2 guys broke it in. They stole about $5,000 worth of tools. Well, I've been since 1978 downtown, and that is the worst ever see all my life since I've been here.
In response to concerns, Windsor police are beefing up city center patrols with extra resources from the problem-oriented policing unit, community services, and other units. It's following a beating that occurred last weekend in the early morning hours. The stepped-up enforcement is being done during the day, but police tell CBC News they are very busy during the day with calls like this one. Downtown Councillor Ronaldo Agostino says the stepped-up police patrols are fine for the short term, but what he says is really needed is a solution for the long term. He says he knows the people in the video and they need supports.
These kids need support, these kids need mentorship, these kids need leadership, these kids need someone to help them, these kids need something to do.
The executive director of ArtSite, just across the street from where the assault took place, agrees.
I think we know the root of it is to provide, like proper support so we don't kind of have to deal with these sorts of violent situations. And I think we'll continue to deal with situations much like what happened downtown until we really get serious about, helping people who live here.
The chair of the Downtown Windsor BIA says they are spending $105,000 on security cameras that use AI technology to call police when something is happening.
So when somebody is doing something that is a precursor to a potential break and enter or those kinds of things, and then it identifies that potential hazard to a human being that then engages in the process to call police or whatever needs to be done as a next step.
But Camille Hillou doesn't think security cameras will do much. Other business people who didn't want to be interviewed don't think 3 days of stepped-up patrols will solve the problem either. The patrols end on Saturday. Dale Molnar, CBC News, Windsor.
That's what it can sound like living across from Festival Plaza downtown. We brought you a story about noise complaints last month. Today, police say they'll have more officers on that site. Police say they are getting a growing number of complaints about what's happening around that plaza. Those complaints are about noise and criminal activity. The force says officers will be strict but fair when it comes to enforcement. They also want to remind people parks and the plaza there close between midnight and 5 in the morning. A Windsor police officer disciplined for donating to the Freedom Convoy now plans to file an appeal. Constable Michael Briscoe was ordered to work 80 hours unpaid following a decision under the Police Services Act. Now, Briscoe donated $50 to a fundraiser supporting Freedom Convoy protesters. Now, those protesters blocked the Ambassador Bridge for nearly a week in February of 2022. Another group spent weeks in Ottawa surrounding the Parliament buildings there. The general theme of those protests was to end pandemic mandates. Briscoe's lawyer says they're appealing the decision, saying that decision violates his freedom of expression.
He fully believed that the protests were peaceful and that they were legal. And in fact, he waited to make the donation until after a decision from the Superior Court that confirmed people could continue to protest. They just couldn't honk their horns. So he fully believed the protests were legal and they were peaceful. And so he made this donation in support of what the protesters were asking the government.
Emergency Preparedness Minister Bill Blair is calling it an unprecedented start to the wildfire season here in Canada.
British Columbia, Alberta, Saskatchewan, the Northwest Territories, Manitoba, Ontario, and most recently Nova Scotia and New Brunswick have all experienced serious wildfires that have prompted the evacuation of tens of thousands of Canadians, including from many Indigenous communities.
Blair says about 2.7 million hectares of land have burned across the country. That's equal to about 5 million football fields. He also confirmed there are more than 200 active fires in the country, with 82 of them out of control. Officials say the crisis is being fueled by climate change and making wildfires more frequent and more extreme. And as wildfires burn out of control in Nova Scotia, nearly 20,000 people are under an evacuation order. Thousands have been forced from their homes and 200 buildings destroyed. While emergency crews work around the clock, volunteers are busy providing food and shelter to those who had to leave their communities. Brooklyn Curry has more.
On most days, you'd love waking up to an ocean view like this. But today, it's not fog rolling in over the harbor. It's wildfire smoke. About a dozen displaced families from the Tantalon area are staying at this campground in Indian Harbor. It's one of many campgrounds, resorts, and hotels that have offered up space for evacuees.
Fortunate enough to have, a trailer right now that we could get out for the time being, but it's, my biggest thing right now is, everybody look after each other and support your first responders that are out there working around the clock, your firefighters, your police. They're doing everything they can to get everybody back in their homes right now.
A few kilometers away, first responders are top of mind for this bakery owner, too. Lindsay Moosey has been preparing and delivering meals to people working on the front lines.
My late father was a firefighter. My uncle's a firefighter who is up there daily fighting this thing. So we wanted to jump into action and do what we could as a family, as a community, as a business to support our loved ones and everybody in the community.
And she's not doing it on her own. Moosey and her staff and countless volunteers have been working long hours since Sunday getting food out the door.
Tantalon is a very small but mighty community. Growing up here, you don't see this happen. Everybody's really thankful, but I want everybody to know, please don't be embarrassed. Don't be embarrassed to give us a call, send us a message on our page, or just show up. We'll make sure you get what you need, and if we don't have it, we'll point you in the right direction or make sure you get it.
One of those directions, the St. Margaret's Bay Legion just up the road. The space is opened as a drop-in center. Volunteers are on site all day collecting donations of food, clothes, toys, and other items. Evacuees are welcome to drop in and pick up whatever they need.
Everybody's been absolutely fantastic. I know, there's local firefighters that are volunteers that, have lost their own homes while they're fighting their neighbors. And it's been very nice to see how much support there is, and we're very grateful.
Nova Scotia is strong, right? That's what we know. And that's the way it will always be. Good hospitality folks.
Volunteers at the Legion say they're working on registering with the Red Cross to be listed as an official comfort center. But they want people to know their doors are open every day from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. And they're willing to stay overnight if people are in need of a place to sleep. Brooklyn Curry, CBC News, St. Margaret's Bay.
Back here in Windsor, this blast of heat is hitting us in a different way. It may have you thinking of ways to cool off, and Windsor's Sandpoint Beach is a popular option, but people are being warned about safety concerns as council considers moving the beach entirely.
The West Beach, which is the bigger beach, is in an area where at one end, although it's demarked and fenced off and it's outside of the swimming area, we have had people wander into the water, and there is quite a current and a drop-off there.
The plan to move the beach was first brought forward by the Life Saving Society. The worry is that it's too close to the mouth of the Detroit River. It would move the beach further east and replace some of the adjacent parkland. Now, meanwhile, a park and other amenities would be built where the current beach is. Public consultations and the environmental assessment for the project has been completed, and council is slated to decide on a report to move the beach later this year. Ward 7 Councillor Angelo Marignani tells CBC that he's optimistic council would support the move and that changes to the location could begin as soon as the beginning of next season. Still to come here on CBC Windsor News, crews are still putting the final touches on the Detroit Grand Prix racetrack in the downtown core. We'll take you there next. I'm standing in the middle of a street in downtown Detroit where the speed limit is about 50 kilometers per hour, but this weekend cars will be traveling nearly 300 kilometers per hour, and that's because downtown Detroit has been transformed into a racetrack. The Chevrolet Detroit Grand Prix is here for the first time in 32 years, and they've set up a brand new 2.7 kilometer circuit. And getting here has taken what organizers describe as a tremendous effort, 18 months of planning.
If you think about it, we're less than 24 hours away from actually having racing, but we didn't get the actual race circuit in full until last night at 7 p.m. So we've been working literally around the clock to make sure the racetrack is ready and all the venue is set up. So I would say the biggest difference is the amount of work that we've put into the last week of the build here is much different from Belle Isle.
I'm standing in one of the many public areas that will be free for spectators just outside of the racetrack here. As for ticket sales in the grandstands, well, for Sunday, those are sold out, and officials say that never happened when the race was on Belle Isle for the last 3 decades or so, just east of here. But it really did all start in downtown Detroit back in 1982.
If you think about automobiles and you think about America, if Detroit's not one of the top cities that you think about, then not a big car guy.
And they break them 3-4 wide getting down here to turn.
The race left downtown Detroit in 1991. This comeback track configured differently for the return. To get familiar with the new circuit, many of the drivers spent today walking around.
The track itself is going to rubber in. After we get more and more laps, that might change the balance. It's obviously going to change how quickly we can go around some of the corners. Outside of that, I think we've all got to be flexible, adaptable, and open-minded that how this weekend could play out, what it's going to change, and what we're thinking at the end of practice one might not be what we're thinking heading into the race. So.
It's a street circuit, right? It's bumpy. There are some right-hand turns, 90-degree corners, left-hand turns, and at the end of the day, the barriers are very close to the road, so you can't make any mistakes if you're a driver.
Qualifying starts tomorrow, and then Saturday and Sunday there will be 6 races in 4 different series. The Windsor-Detroit Tunnel will also remain open. However, traffic heading back into Canada will need to show a special placard to gain access. You can pick up those at toll booths or print them on the tunnel's website. And Colette Kennedy joins us now for a live look at weather. Colette, it was such a beautiful day being over there in downtown Detroit. And for many people, it will be the first time that they see the Grand Prix in downtown Detroit once again. But it won't be your first time, though, right?
No, because some people weren't born even back then. I was there. I was at the very last. Yeah. And it's so exciting. Like, I'm so glad it's come back into downtown, or they call it round the houses, even though it's really through downtown, because it's not just how close you can get at certain points. It's that roar, like that roar of those engines as they're going around. So, yeah, that's really amazing. Part of the reason I went was because I was a big fan. I loved Ayrton Senna. May he rest in peace, but I wanted to be there because it was going to be the last. And here it is, within my lifetime, back again. All right, some record highs. There were a lot of record highs across Ontario. I've just put a few here on the board. Chatham-Kent, just eke that in there, right? 29.3 and 29.5, the new record from just last year. So here we go, next year beating a record. Some of the other ones kind of smashed, including the hotspot in Ontario, the nation's capital, Ottawa. 34 degrees. So we talk about all this heat we're seeing and the lack of rainfall. Now that we've completed May and we're into June, we can look back at what the average generally is for that month and just how dry it has been. It's pretty lucky that we had a wetter spring or early part to the season, at least since we've seen this deficit as we've gone through this past month. Here at the beginning of June, it's the beginning of meteorological summer. Also, the Atlantic hurricane season begins, but we have to be watching out with folks going camping, and because things have been so dry, much of Ontario is in the extreme area of the fire danger index, including, as you can see, this has expanded just in these last couple of days through southwestern Ontario. Check out the current temperatures and check out the cooling effect of the winds coming off the lake, where it's like a 10 degrees difference there, but Sarnia at 25 and Windsor 31, Chatham-Kent 29 at the moment. The humidex value, definitely not where it's going to get to when we get into the summer, right? There's a little bit of humidity there. It's not too not too bad. And then just looking though at the satellite and radar, no rain to be found there. If I broaden our perspective well to the north and back to the west, there's some convective stuff, and there's the slimmest chance seeing more of that sinking into southern Ontario tomorrow. I don't think it's going to make its way to southwestern Ontario, probably more so eastern sections of the GTA, and from there a few pop-ups are possible. We stay drier. A slim chance then into Saturday. I've put it in there, but even that looks like I'm not sure we're going to get anything out of it. It does set up for a nice weekend as we go into Saturday and Sunday. If we don't get those showers, and it's not looking like we will, pretty fine weekend coming our way. Overnight temperatures will drop to a low around 17 degrees, but just keeping in mind, like, things heat up so quickly once the sun is up. So tomorrow I've got us at 33. Saturday comes down a little bit, and then the temperatures do level off a bit more into the mid-20s after that, more comfortable.
Looks like some great weather for the Grand Prix. Thanks so much, Colette.
You're welcome.
And still to come, an 11-year-old from here in Windsor makes it pretty far in a national spelling bee championship all the way in Washington. That story is next. More than 1 million people have fled fighting in Sudan. In the last week alone, 350,000 have taken refuge across the border in South Sudan. As we hear from CBC's Chris Brown, finding safety is a dangerous undertaking.
Well, this is truly a heartbreaking, depressing, chaotic scene. What you're looking at are hundreds of people, roughly 400 people crammed into this boat on the White Nile River. Right now we're in South Sudan. The border with Sudan is very close to here, and all of these people have fled the fighting and the violence that has been going on in Sudan since April the 15th. They're mostly South Sudanese. They have escaped, and this is an important part of their journey. There's no road south of here, so this is the only way, the only path to freedom for them. But it's a pretty awful one. You can see how tightly jammed in they all are. There's no way to stand up. There's no bathroom facilities. They have to bring all of their own food, and they're going to be on this boat for 2 days. That's how long it's going to take them to get to their stop up the Nile River. They will stop occasionally on the way to build fires and cook food and so forth, but as I say, it's pretty awful. And this is just a tiny sliver of the displacement that the fighting, the violence in Sudan has caused, and it's spilled over into all the countries around Sudan, but really South Sudan has suffered the most. This is a country that is one of the poorest in the world. It doesn't have the resources to support any of these people who have come back. So there's a huge fear about the destabilization that war is causing and will continue to cause, not just here in South Sudan, but in all of the countries that surround Sudan. Chris Brown, CBC News, in Rank, South Sudan.
Air Canada flights are being delayed for the second time in a week due to a technical issue. More than 200 flights have been held up and dozens have been canceled. The company said a problem with the communicator system is at the root of the issue. Close to half of the airline's daily load has been impacted. The airline is apologizing to customers and advising them to check their flight status before going to the airport. And we've got an update on a young Windsor speller taking on North America's best. We first met 11-year-old Isaac Brogan last week. The regional champion made it all the way to Washington for the Scripps National Spelling Bee. Now, he had a solid run all the way to the semifinals. That's when things took a bit of a turn. He was asked to spell tenric, that's a small mammal. Brogan told the judges to, quote, prepare the bell. That's what they ring when the word is wrong. The grade 5 student went with Tenrec. But there is no K in that word. Brogan was eliminated, but says he found a lot of joy in his classmates watching.
I think they're really excited. I got like an email that they were watching me during school, and that just really touched my heart. I really appreciated that.
Congratulations for making it so far. That's it for us here at CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget, for news anytime, head to our website, cbc.ca/Windsor. We're on social media as well. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Thanks for watching. Have a great night.